riparian area.
Andy Faust from North Central Wisconsin Regional Planning, and we are here to talk about something new today, which is WROC Image Services. And I'm going to let Andy kick it off with a little background on the status of the program.
Sure. Most of you probably are aware of the WROC Consortium. I mean, it's the greatest and largest statewide consortium in the state. Might be the only one, but it's still the greatest. It's something that the Regional Planning Commission kind of put together more than a decade ago when we hired Ayres to do the project management and run the consortium and acquire things like aerial imagery because we don't have any planes. And it's a little different consortium because it's a bottom-up consortium where we build the projects at the local level, and then we look for partners that want regional and statewide data sets to help offset the local project costs. And we try to keep it in a repeatable cycle. And it's been working fairly well. I mean, it's kind of what we got. Here's a little update status on the program. We had 62 counties fly from 2018 to 2020. 55 of those counties at 6-inch pixel, which is crazy to me, and 7 of them at 3-inch, which is even more crazy. I can't even imagine that we're doing 3-inch countywide projects. That also includes sewer pack and the Flight AIM programs brought into the WROC program this last time. And with the partnerships from the state and federal and utility companies, we did achieve statewide coverage for 2020. And they also get a copy of the high-res orthos that the local projects provided. So this is kind of a little update on where the data is and when you're going to get it. Most of the data obviously has been processed, over 50 terabytes of data, huge chunk of data. About 95% of the county projects have been delivered, and they plan on wrapping up all the county deliveries by the end of this month. The statewide deliverables, the 2018-2019 data has already been delivered to the state and federal partners, and the 2020 stuff will be delivered shortly after the final county stuff is delivered in February. I think we're thinking like end of March, early April, Zach.
Right, yep.
Because they have to reprocess some of that stuff into the DOQQs. This one's still mine, Zach?
Sure.
Sure, he says. Let's see this one. Okay, yeah, so all the data typically is delivered on USB hard drives. People kind of like those little warm drives that put under their pillows and they feel safe and comfortable with them. So we continue to deliver on it. It's kind of a nice, easy way to do it than downloading terabytes of data. And now Zach's going to talk a little bit about the new imagery service options for 2020. This is something some of the partners were looking for. And I think even some of the members of the consortium wanted ways to sometimes acquire data, you know, next to their counties in an easier way. So I think we'll turn it over to Zach now, right?
Okay, thanks, Andy. Yep, and that's correct. You know, I think the hard drives have been the name of the game for a while now, and that is something that everybody's comfortable with. But you know, things are changing, and we recognize that need from partners and from members of the consortium that, you know, an image service would be highly valuable, especially when you're talking about the ability, you know, at the statewide level for that 12-inch pixel data and previous data sets to be ingested in GIS and used as a base mapping layer. So, you know, this is something new in WROC. It's something that we've been researching for a while because we've heard of the demand for it. So we wanted to take a really close look at it and come up with something that we thought was kind of the right fit for the program. And really what that comes down to is balancing performance and image quality. You know, there's a lot of ways to cache data and stream it over the web from the cloud, but a lot of times you're giving up the quality of that data for just pure performance. So we really tried to balance both of those. So what we're really taking here is some new technologies into play to be able to serve up the uncompressed TIFF imagery. So those statewide DOQQ TIFFs, get those in the cloud in a cloud native format, and then be able to ingest those through a web map tile service into your GIS and do it in a way that's not, you know, that doesn't have specific software requirements. So what it's not is, you know, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the fact that the WROC public domain data has ended up, you know, on Wisconsin U, for example, in the past, which is essentially an FTP where you can go grab a single tile at a time. That's not what this is. This is an image service. It's not a cached mosaic. It's not a compressed SID image. And it's not data sitting on an Ayres server or a North Central server or a Wisconsin View server. It's sitting in the cloud and being pulled down directly from that cloud location. So a couple of the technologies that have come into play here in our approach, one is, XYZ tile services are kind of a loosely packaged way for to put an image service out there. But if you look at taking it to the WMTS level, that web map tile service is, a much more packaged way to ingest that imagery into your GIS. And we are taking advantage of cloud optimized GeoTIFF technology, which is called COG for short. And really what we're doing here is, the COG is an OGC standard, open source standard that was developed by large federal agencies and their imagery contractors for handling large, massive satellite data sets. So we're basically taking that technology and bringing it down to that statewide level and bringing it down to the, fixed wing, high res ortho level. We're bringing it into a technology called the stat catalog. And this is a form of metadata that we're able to use. It's a group, or it's a way to organize the COG tiles in the cloud and draw off of those, draw data sets out of that stat catalog. It's a cloud native technology, which means it works directly, in the cloud, and you're bringing down data to use through these services. Really opens up this data to be used for many applications, that are out there, whereas it can't be when it's just sitting on a server or a hard drive somewhere. And then lastly, we'll show you a dashboard, which really brings all this together in a very easy to use format. So just a little more background here. We have a screenshot, and we'll get into a live demo here shortly, or a recorded demo, I should say. But again, we're looking at, using this COG technology. So we're really talking about looking at the full resolution GeoTIFF tiles through this WMTS service and this data sitting in that stat catalog in the cloud. And again, this Encarto dashboard is something that we'll look at that brings additional functionality on top of just the WMTS. So some of the benefits, of course, you're getting, as soon as the 2020 statewide DOQs are ready, we can get them out there quickly, into that public domain environment. So that's important. Again, we want to be able to see these orthos in full uncompressed resolution, consuming directly into your GIS. One of the big things we'll look at is comparing change over time. So from 2010 to 2020, most of the state's been acquired 3 times. So you get to see 3 different points of change across a 10-year period. It's a single source statewide. And that orthoimagery is, adheres to those WROC standards for base mapping. So we're going to jump into a pre-recorded video here showing the WMTS in ArcMap. So hopefully you guys will be able to hear the audio as well. Okay, today I am demoing the WROC image services using ArcMap, and I'm usually using version 10.7.1 here. And as you can see over here on the right, I have the WROC layer package MXD opened up, and that saves our various image layers coming from the WMTS image services, as well as some scale dependencies for zoom levels when the overviews are turned on and when it goes over to the high res tiles. So right now, of course, we're just looking at statewide. We have over here in our table of contents, you can see we have the WROC 2015 layer, as well as the 2015 overview layer at the statewide scale. And then down below, we have the WROC 2010 layer, the full res tiles plus the overview layer. I've also added in a base map from Esri just so we can navigate. So if we take a look over here at the table of contents, just to show you source of the data, click on this layer, properties. So if you take a look at the source here, we have the WMTS server. So this is where the data is stored in the cloud. And you can see this is the full URL that we are connecting to be able to view the imagery. And then I can scroll down, I see the cache scales and the coordinate system WGS 84 is optimized for web. If I move over to the cache tab, we are keeping the cache between sessions here. Of course, the cache is going to allow us to view the data more quickly once we go back to an area that we've been before. Okay. Why don't we also come over here and take a look at the scale dependencies that we have set on these layers. Right now, you can see that the overviews are turned on for 2015 and 2010, and the full res tiles are not yet activated. And that's because we're at the statewide scale here. Now, if I go up to the scale bar, we have this set to 125,000, 1 to 125,000. And if I zoom to that scale, what you will see is both the full res tiles and the overviews are turned on. You can see that in the table of contents. So here we are at this scale, both the overview layer and the full res tiles are turned on. Up until this point, it was just the overviews. Now, if I step in one more step to 1 to 100,000, you'll see the overviews turn off and the full res tiles turn on. And there we go. So at this scale now, we're looking at the full res tiles that make up this area. Now, the reason we do that, and I'll step back here, the reason we do that is because to look at the state at the full res would take a very long time for the imagery to load, and it would be very intensive in terms of pulling the data from the cloud. So that's why we're turning these overview layers on at the larger scales, and then as we zoom in, the full res turns on. Okay, so one thing I want to mention too is I'll turn the 2015 off. So this is the 2010 statewide overview. That was statewide 18-inch pixel. DOQQ tile data is the source. Now if I turn on the 2015, here you see partial state coverage. So in 2015, there were 45 counties that participated in WROC. So you see that level of coverage, but you do not see the statewide. Again, if I turn on the 2010 layer, then that's going to go to the full statewide extent with that coverage. Now, I would like to mention that in 2020, we will have statewide coverage again, and that will be at 12-inch pixel resolution. So ultimately, the WMTS will have another set of layers for the 2020 high res, the full res tiles, and a 2020 statewide overview. Okay, now let's zoom into an area and take a look and watch the imagery load and compare it. So I'm actually going to turn off my 2010 and 2015. I'm just going to turn on a base map here so I can zoom into an area where I know there's some change. So now we're just loading the Esri base map here. Okay. Let's zoom in just north of La Crosse here. The Holman area. This subdivision. And I'm going to turn on my 2010 layer. You can see our scale, we're at about 1 to 10,000 here. Okay, and I know I have 2015 coverage, so I'm going to turn that on. And there you go. So right now we have both the 2015 full res tiles and the 2010 full res tiles here. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more here. Of course, I could turn my base map off at this point, so it draws a little bit faster. Okay, so there we have it. Now, of course, I can toggle my 2015s off to see the 2010, and then I see, of course, there's been some home construction in this area since 2010, if I turn the 2015s on. Of course, another useful tool is the image swipe tool, and that gives me the ability to swipe between the years. So if I open that tool in ArcMap, I have it loaded up here, and I can toggle back and forth between the years that I want to look at. So I hit the swipe button here. I've selected 2015, that will be on top. Then I can swipe down and see the 2010 underneath. Of course, you know, very easy to see all the change that's happened in just a matter of 5 years. Of course, one of the beauties here is we're dealing with WROC imagery that's consistent scale and specifications, as well as accuracy. So you can see how well these two data sets line up along the edges of pavement and intersections. So we're talking about, you know, a well-known horizontal accuracy between the two data sets as well. Of course, you can load in other vector data. Okay, I'm going to stop our video there. Jim, are we going to be able to get a few more minutes past 4?
Yeah, you know, you guys are the last speakers, so I would say if you just want to go ahead with that and just keep going. The next event, the elevation LiDAR SIG, is until 4:30. We don't want to go that long, but I'd say if you go another 10 to 15 minutes, that's okay in my way of thinking, at least. Okay, no, that works. We just have one more demo video we want to show here of the dashboard, so we'll jump into that. But you know, I did talk about the dashboard here. We're partnered with Syncardo, who's here at the conference, and on this project, and they've developed this dashboard, which brings in a lot of additional functionality. You know, this isn't something that's going to be available in the public domain per se, but this is an option for state partners and for counties and municipalities to take a look at for bringing in the high-res 6-inch and 3-inch orthos. It has excellent performance. It has the swipe tool again, but the clip and ship per AOI is a very handy tool to have, along with some of the advanced search tools and some of the guaranteed uptimes that can be achieved with the dashboard. So we're going to jump into a demo of the WROC dashboard via Syncardo. Okay, here we are in the Syncardo WROC dashboard, and I'm using Google Chrome to use this app. And what we're looking at here is essentially a dashboard with some additional functionality brought together into an easy to use interface. And we're reading, you know, the same WMTS tile service that's stored in the cloud as that we were in ArcMap, but this is in a much more usable environment. So if we look over here on the left, we have our 2010 layer, our 2015 layer, and then again, we have the overviews, and you can turn on both the 2010 and the 2015 overviews by sliding this slider bar all the way over to the right, or you can turn on just the 2010s by sliding it to the left. So if we take a look and select the share button, you can see the XYZ tile service link. We can look at the ArcGIS URL, and then we also have the WMTS with the get capabilities link here, and this is what we were using earlier in ArcMap.
Okay, so we're going to take a look at just the comparison between the 2 years again. The 2010 is what you're seeing here. And then if I grab this blue dot along the bottom and slide it, we are looking at the 2015 imagery coming over the top. Okay. So very easy to use slider bar there to look between the 2 years. I think what I'll do here is zoom in a little bit. You know that there's an area of change right in this area. Again, 2010. I slide over to 2015 ortho, and you can see that building was constructed in that time span. All right, moving down here, we can toggle that layer list on and off if you want to make the map a little bit bigger. There's also some simple measurement tools. So I can measure a distance here, just down the road, a couple left clicks, 3,715 feet. I can also do an area measurement if I would like. Now, I can set this area of interest with this button. So it's basically going to grab the area of interest on my screen here, where I'm working, and draw a yellow box around it. Now, one of the beauties of the dashboard here is has a functionality to clip and ship just your area of interest rather than full tiles. So if I slide over here and I hit the I button, you can see those green lines actually represent the full DOQQ TIFF tiles. And those are the native tiles that are stored in the tile service. And you can see my AOI falls within one DOQQ. Now, if I want the full DOQQ, I can grab it. So I would just click out here and I would get a link to download, you know, that Wisconsin Rapids North DOQQ. But I'm not going to do that here. That's a lot of data and I don't want to pull all of that down. I'm concerned with my area of interest. So I'm actually going to turn off those full tiles and go back to my AOI. And at this point, I want to clip and ship just this area. But what I want to do first is pick which year I want. So I'm going to look at it and say, okay, I want the newer imagery. I'm going to turn off the 2010, and I'm going to turn off the overview layer. So now when I clip and ship, I'm just going to get the 2015. So I click this button at the bottom here, and then you'll see over on the right-hand side that job was submitted for processing. So now that's automatically going to go and use that cloud optimized GeoTIFF and pull out just the pixels from my AOI. And then it'll provide me with a link to download that data. So as that job is processing, I'll just do a little bit of zooming out here. I want to be able to show you speed at which it works. So as we zoom out, it's going to be loading in this case. At some point, it will switch over to the overviews. Again, I have the 2010 statewide turned on. I zoom out. And I can zoom out just with my mouse by scrolling the wheel. And pretty soon we get to this statewide layer quite quickly. And once again, I can zoom right back into my AOI. And there we are. Okay, now over on the right, you can see that the data is ready. So I click to download. It'll load to my local machine here. And then we'll be able to take a look at the individual TIFF tile for my area of interest. So I'll open that folder. And there we have it. Try that again. Okay, so if I go to my downloads, there we have that AOI zipped up. So I'll extract it. And And there it is. And of course, I can open that TIFF in whatever software I'd like. Preferably not Photoshop, but that's kind of my default here. So there you go. I have that area clipped out in a TIFF file, in a GeoTIFF file that I can load for my project site in my GIS software. Okay, I'm going to close that. The last thing I want to mention is that this has some pretty advanced search functionality. Let me erase my AOI there. If I come over to the chat box here, I can type in something like find Madison, Wisconsin, USA. So it has a geographic search functionality built into it. And it selects an AOI around Madison. I could say something like find Langlade County, Wisconsin Fairgrounds. Let's see if we can find that. There you have it. Of course, I can, once I'm there, I can slide back and forth between my 2 years of imagery. Of course, I could download that area. I could clip and ship it as well. Lastly, there is the statewide parcel data set functionality here. So I can actually say something like find parcels owned by Andrew Faust, for example, and see what it comes up with. And then sure enough, it looks like we have 5 parcels that are owned by somebody named Andrew Faust. And then, of course, we can select any one of them. And let's take a look at that one. Parcel 0. Oh, looks like that's the one we're on. And then, of course, once again, you can take a look here at a house or a parcel owned by somebody named Andrew Faust. Compare between the years. And of course, if I was interested, I could then clip and ship that data as well, which I won't do that in this case. Okay, that's just some of the functionality here that is available in the Syncarto WROC dashboard. That's it for today.
Hey, Zach, you got a lot of questions, so maybe we should take those questions.
Okay, sounds good. This is our last slide, Andy, I guess. Then just we'll talk about next steps. So partner deliveries are, shipped via hard drives to those partners. Once that's complete, then the 12-inch statewide orthos are loaded into the cloud and the WMTS is rolled out and published. So that is part of the program, the WMTS. That's something that we'll be likely posting through the WROC website. And then what we just looked at through Syncarto, those enhanced dashboard options, those are an additional service offered through the WROC program. So that's something that you could talk to Andy and I about if you are interested. And I guess we have one more. Beyond 2020, flights are still occurring in WROC as we go towards the next cycle here. So there's flights in 21, 22, and then 23 will be the start of the next cycle. We see a lot of interest in going to a 3-year update cycle. So things continue to go here and new imagery is going to be produced. And, the question is, will we achieve statewide coverage again by 2025? Will be determined based on participation level and partnerships. So that is it. I know we kept everybody overtime and we can certainly entertain questions if people are willing to stick around.
Yeah, that's okay. Thanks, guys. I think we should agree to wrap up by, let's say, 4:15, just to, allow a little bit of time for visiting the virtual exhibits and so forth. Does that sound okay to you, Zach?
Yep.
Sounds good.
Okay, let me just spin through some of the questions real quick here, some of which have been answered by Adam. Will CAD users be able to stream this in? The answer is yes, if the CAD software can accept a WMTS service. I had asked, it looks like all the services are Web Mercator. Can you confirm or deny that?
Right, the web services are WGS84. Of course, the tile data is the DOQQ data is WTM. I was blanking there for a minute.
That's
But
what I was-
WTM meters is the original file format of the DOQQs.
Okay. Jim G had asked if the services are 3 or 4 band, and I believe Adam had said later on, it looks like 3 band natural color. Is that correct?
Currently, with the capabilities, it's being served up as 3 band. Yes, there is future functionality that will allow viewing in 4 band through the dashboard.
Okay. And Jennifer from Janesville asked, who is paying for this? I think she's asking specifically for the services and the enhanced services through Syncardo.
Right. So the WMTS, public domain data for the 12-inch is part of the program. That's a pretty, that part is covered as part of current partnerships. Anything enhanced for the high res data or as part of the dashboard functionality would be an additional service that would have to be covered by the partner or the member in WROC.
Okay, very good. I'm fast forwarding through questions here if I miss anything. So Nina is asking, just to be clear, are there going to be 3 separate image services, 1 for each WROC year?
That's correct. I mean, the image service will have, that's correct. There's going to be an image service for each year. And what we were looking at in ArcMap was it was packaged up right into an MXD. So that's likely how we'll package it up.
Okay, so the service might be called 10, 15, 20, but the 20 service could have data from 18, 19, 20, for example.
Right.
That's true.
Okay, okay. Calvin's asking, when will the service be available? I think he's referring to the 2020 service.
Right. So once we make those deliveries to the partners in March and April, then we'll take the steps to get the data loaded into the cloud and make it available. So we're probably looking at, April, May, June timeframe. I'd expect it to be available.
Okay. It's kind of like trying to guess the availability of vaccines, right? you can do so much.
Right.
So call it late spring, right? Those are my words, not the official statement from Ayres. A question from Eric. Did I hear correct? The 2020 photos would be 12-inch, even for those areas that might have been collected at 6-inch or 3-inch.
So yes, that's correct. All of the through the partnerships, the high-res local data will be downsampled to the 12-inch GeoQQs across all areas in the state, regardless of the native resolution that it was collected at.
Okay, great.